human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
And that's that. We can stand up and fight and ride all day through the night. We can make this change right and see our hopes and our dreams come to fruition. It's time to unite as one, calling out to our founding fathers. This is our mission to make you
Ladies and gentlemen,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first live stream. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Bolin, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Phil McNamara.
Hi, everybody.
And we're really stoked to be doing this live stream.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool getting all this stuff set up and being able to present this for you guys. So we have been promoting our first live stream with the title of The Illuminati and the Music-Industrial-Complex.
Right.
And basically, through doing the research of this, we were just discovering so much stuff that we literally had to say, we need to put this in a couple different parts because
Right.
this thing is just so vast in its scale. And, we didn't want to shortchange anyone with the information.
Right.
So we decided to put this into a couple different parts. So our first part one is actually going to be on Origins of the Illuminati Music-Industrial-Complex, part one. And so the reason we wanted to cover the origins is because the bulk of it gets so deep that without a comprehensive overview of where this all started, and it's going to be really hard to have the context for even bypassing the cognitive dissonance on what these topics mean and how they relate to the current history right now and how they involve a lot of our big music celebrities that we all know and love.
Yeah, doing all of this was really kind of challenging for me because a lot of the groups and artists that are represented in this are people that I actually have grown up listening to and watching all my life. So when doing research for this, and it's just so vast, it's so deep, it's so big, and it's something that's not really talked about a lot. And I think it's a time that we sort of bring this out into the light and see if we can change it, or at least make people aware of it. So yeah, it was emotionally challenging for me.
It was very emotionally challenging
really
for me.
was.
I mean, I had some extreme anxiety doing some of this research because when you get into this, you understand that this stuff is so real, and the information on it is so vast, and
it affects everybody. Like,
it does affect everyone.
Everyone listens to music, and most of us are all, of a certain age, so we grew up in an era from the 60s forward, and this has been going on since then. And so
we have a connection with these music artists subconsciously on a soul level, whether we want to like it or not, because music is a vibration, and the vibration is either positively or negatively affecting us on a soul level.
Right. Absolutely. That's why some people like certain artists and they can just listen to them for hours on end, and some of us can listen to other kind of music and it makes us cringe. Mm-hmm. It's very personal. So,
and that's something else that we're actually going to talk about, why some music might make you cringe or you like it, having to do with the 440 hertz and 432 hertz controversy.
Something I didn't know about. I learned a lot about this because as a result of doing this.
Yeah, and that's actually going to be talked about probably actually more in part 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have so many slides to share with you guys for this PowerPoint presentation, so we're just going to jump right into it.
Let's do it.
All right, so the origins of the Illuminati Music-Industrial-Complex Part 1. And as you guys can see, we're definitely doing kind of like a play on words of the military-industrial complex. And right here we see Eminem in this picture on the left, showing the one eye symbolism and devil horns. It's right in your face.
Right.
In the middle we have Aleister Crowley, who was claimed to be famously known as the wickedest man in the world. And I did a lot of research on Crowley and found actually some positive things about him, some negative things about him. And, I kind of wanted to, our big point of this is to not point people out, but kind of clear the air on a lot of these topics in the sense of we're painted a picture that these people are just all bad and they're all evil,
Right.
they're all satanic, they're all Luciferian in this community. And something that we want to do is clear the air.
Absolutely.
Like, I myself, I'm a music producer, I play in a band, and I something that I see is like everyone just points out, oh, okay, if someone's artwork is Luciferian or has occult symbolism, they're satanic.
Right.
And okay, well, why don't we do some research into the person who did the artwork, not just assume that the artist is in that category. And what we found is going into some of these people, looking at some of the artwork and their background and some of their other artwork, it looks like they're the ones with the occult ties, not necessarily the artists.
Right. It's not necessarily the people that are doing the music, it's the people that are around them and behind them.
Exactly. So we're mainly talking about, music producers, A&R people, the people that own these huge major record labels, and album artwork people, stage choreographers, stage designers, the choreographers for the dance routines, and we're going to get into a lot of that more in part 2, but we just kind of wanted to lay the groundwork of letting people know that we're not here to call these artists out and say that they're Luciferian, they're satanic. Right. We're trying to say that they may be controlled by some people in the music industry who are, let's say, okay, Eminem's at this photo shoot, and the photographer says, hey, Em, let's just like make people really cringe and think, like, why don't you throw up the devil horns on your forehead and just show the one eye, and we'll go with that. And Eminem might just be, going with the photo shoot, and that's the one that they choose and end up going with because it's provocative. And but on the flip side, it very well may be that Eminem has sold his soul to the devil, as he's explained in some of his songs. So we're going to look at both sides of a lot of these accusations that people have been making these music artists and kind of clear the air as far as and show people a little more of the inner workings too of how these I see some people online that will just say satanic Kesha.
Right.
Like she's
right.
like all behind this, and it's like, hello, like these people are involved with a lot of money behind these major record labels and a lot of these artists are in 360 deals where they're just literally getting screwed on a lot of this stuff, and there's so much money behind them that they're going to say, we're going to promote you in this way, we need you to be on board, and we just need you to sing and show up.
Right. And really all the artists want to do is when they get into the music business, they're not thinking about, all of this stuff. They're thinking about, I just want to
sing.
I want to sing and be an artist and do my art, and they have to get into this business part of it. It's just like with the entertainment business, any kind of business.
It all stems back to the Babylonian money magic.
Right. There are people at the top of the pyramid that are making all the money, and there are people that are being exploited at the bottom that are doing all the work.
Yeah, correct. So, and these, so we're gonna get into some of that in the future, but let's get right into the rest. This next slide here, and we're gonna start this off. Oh, before we move on, of course, the picture on the right, we have Madonna,
right,
with the the pyramid, with I'm assuming there's an all-seeing eye up there. And,
yeah, I can sort of see it there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, this is just some of these occult symbols that are going on, and hopefully we can put to light a correct way of looking at some of these things. Okay, so let's go to this next slide here. So cognitive dissonance. It says a cognitive dissonance this is the definition of it: a new set of beliefs that change a person's view of the world, in which they react angrily, hostile, or violently. And let's just be real, we're a culture of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, we really are.
And this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to take on this new set of information, because if I tell you that we have people controlling the world that have a cult religion that may or may not be Luciferian, And these music artists are involved in the middle of it, and there's these people controlling them, trying to push this agenda that Satanism is cool and trendy to your children.
Right.
What would, most people who hear that for the first time, it upsets them. They react angrily and hostily, and part of what we want to do with this is go through the steps of breaking down the cognitive dissonance to show that this very well, most likely, is happening, and there's research that we've done to support this.
And it's also important to understand that this is just a part of humanity. This is how we respond to new information a lot of times, especially if it's disturbing information. So, I when I was first learning about some of this years and years ago, I had a response to this that was very negative too, because I was very upset that the fact that the people that I was listening to may be involved in something that was just so horrific and so out of the box from where I would ever thought they would have gone, that it was for a long time I resisted it. I just said, no, this isn't true. And
which brings us to our next bullet point, which is so much of the point, we are a culture of cognitive dissonance, so much to the point that we call conspiracies conspiracy theories.
Right.
Just assuming they are all theory without any research, this is a byproduct of cognitive dissonance. And I think that's just so true.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's sad to see that.
It's also, I really dislike the term conspiracy theorist. I think it's a very overused and misunderstood term. I really think I want to go with alternative researcher, or
which is slowly becoming
mainstream
because
research.
We're seeing Alex Jones, and then also too David Wilcock and Corey Goodshow. I mean, they're getting higher ratings higher viewership than CNN.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of researchers, and these people are spending hours and hours and hours of time deeply researching all of these subjects so they can bring the most current information forward. They're not sitting around with a foil hat on, hiding under their house, waiting for a helicopter to come up over their head, which actually does happen to them. So,
the intimidation.
It's an intimidation tactic, and then they use that as, see, these people are all like that, and that's not true. And we need to start to recreate the dialogue and recreate these terms so make them more positive, so that people can, start to learn about this stuff without feeling like they're going to be ostracized.
Yes, and this brings us to our last bullet point on this slide, which is that this reaction is actually a natural defense mechanism of the brain. So it's very natural for humans to just feel this way off the bat. And if anyone out there who is more awakening at home with some of these subjects, if you talk to family members and anyone else that you feel is having this response, it's not because of you, it's not because you're a weirdo, it's not because of any of that, or you can't be taken seriously. It's because this is a natural defense mechanism from the brain.
Yes.
I mean, I have this all the time with my girlfriend, to be honest, when it comes to these kind of subjects, and I'm not going to push this on her in too far of a way, or any of my other friends who have a hard time with these subjects, because it's all part of their soul growth,
right?
In accepting these at the time that suits them best.
Very important. Very important. If you decide you learned something about this and you want to go running over to your father or to your girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever you have and start just blurting all this information out at them, and they look at you with absolute terror in their eyes, stop talking. They're not ready to hear it. They're not ready. Just don't destroy the opportunity to bring this information into their life at a different time when they're ready. It
doesn't mean that they're wrong or you're wrong, or has nothing to do with that. It's just, when the right time happens and the opportunity presents itself and they're ready, they'll probably come to you.
Yep.
Just like Phil, you've been saying a lot of your friends have been coming forward to you and asking you questions about these subjects.
People that I would never have thought would have come forward have actually come forward, and friends of mine on Facebook, because I've been a little bit active on Facebook about, putting some of this stuff out there. And some of them have actually private messaged me and said, okay, so what's really going on? And just people that I would never have suspected would have had that reaction. But whatever it was, something I posted or something, or maybe the consistency of it has made them really look at it and go, okay, you know what? he's obviously very passionate about this, and based on my knowledge of knowing this man for however many decades or years or however long, maybe there's something to what he's talking about.
That's right. All right, so let's get to our next slide.
Yep.
Luciferian versus satanic beliefs. Now, this is something we really want to set the record straight with the difference between these two things. So basically, let's get right into it. The Luciferian belief system is Lucifer's champion the quality of light attributed to Lucifer. Sorry, Luciferians champion the quality of light attributed to Lucifer, and some may worship Lucifer in a form of devotion that includes sun worship. They typically believe that Lucifer is the same as Satan, but they worship only the positive side of Lucifer's character. Jehovah's Witnesses say that in Scripture, the name Lucifer refers solely to the king of ancient Babylon.
And so, and the second part of that is satanic belief system follows the teachings of Anton LaVey, who's the founder of the Church of Satan, who wrote the Satanic Bible, and they do not sacrifice animals or worship any deity, whether God or Satan. However, they do embrace a service to self ideal instead of service to others.
That's very crucial. Something else that's very interesting there is the ancient Babylon link right there. By the way, if any of you guys hear that in the background, those are peacocks.
Peacocks.
We're in Palos Verdes right now, right in the area where I actually had my UFO experiences,
Yep.
which we talked about a couple episodes ago. We're at the home base for Bull and Sound Productions, where I do all my music production stuff with my dad here and work with some other music artists. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yep. I thought they were cats. So.
Most people do when they first hear them. But, yeah, so we were talking about ancient Babylon and how that's very interesting, because Babylon is where a lot of these occult practices all started. Like I said, the Babylonian money magic, and also that's where Sumer is, so that's where we have the Sumerian,
Right.
The Sumerian text with the talking about the Anunnaki gods. And so it's very interesting, and also that connection to that some researchers believe that Anunnaki could have been reptilian beings,
yeah.
And that's what we have many reports of what people believe the devil looks like.
Right.
With the horns.
They
and
sort of a
just everything.
creation of the horns and the
scales
and the tail and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So it's an amalgam of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this is something interesting about sun worship that we thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Baal is a Judeo-Christian demon in the Masonic Royal Arch degree ritual, 13th degree in the Scottish Rite. The sacred god of Freemasonry is revealed as Ja Baal-An, or Baal. So this is very interesting because where Baal is another name for Lucifer or the devil, and how there's this big thing about Freemasonry where people don't know for sure, that they don't want to believe it, that the Illuminati infiltrated Freemasonry sometime in the 1700s, I believe it was, and they did.
Apparently
and
it
there's
did
historical text of it, and there's George Washington has a letter to Congress warning about this,
Right.
that he was afraid that this was going to happen, and these are matters of public record. It's just some people say that Freemasons are the Illuminati, and that's not true either. It's just that they were infiltrated in a way where inside there is an Illuminati aspect to this, and as we
Right.
can see here in this slide, that we thought was very interesting, this information, that Freemasons may very well be doing rituals to this god named Baal.
And also, just to set the record straight, you don't have to believe any of this. You just have to understand that they believe it.
Yeah, that's something that's very important too.
Yeah.
And I know that might cause a little controversy between Freemasons and people who study Illuminati and all that, but I thought that was very interesting, and I felt like, it's a responsibility when you come across something interesting to share that with the world. And
Absolutely.
you can take away with it what you might, but we thought it was an interesting connection.
Yep.
Okay, next we have the Order of the Black Sun, which is a Nazi secret society group also known as the SS. The Black Sun is an occult reference to the dark side of Lucifer's light, and also a major secret in the ancient mystery school teachings of the Black Sun that coexist, the Black Sun that co-orbits our sun.
And also, one of the things that the Nazis were doing is they were searching for ancient archaeological relics during World War II, things that were that had mystical or magical properties. For instance, they were looking for the Spear of Destiny, which was the spear that supposedly pierced Christ. They were looking for the
Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant. That was a big one, and they were looking for anything associated with the Christian God that they could bring forth and as a weapon. Yeah. So, and they spent a great deal of time and a great deal of resources on trying to find these things. We don't know for sure whether they found them or not. They may have. We just don't know.
Used as a weapon. Yeah. Also, something that I've heard some pretty crazy stories too. That there was people possibly in the SS looking at ancient scriptures. We know they were looking at the Mahabharata, trying to create Vimanas. That they were looking at ancient scriptures of how to possibly raise the dead to have even a zombie army.
Yeah.
And this is where it just gets really
gets
fringe
nuts,
into
it's really
the thought process of even thinking that way. But when you think about all the drugs that Hitler was taking and just the thought process of this, and that it's a matter of public record that they were channeling ETs with the Vril Society.
Yeah.
Big goop of what do you want to believe? But
right.
We know the Vril Society that was actually going on. And last we have that was happening. So you put all this together, it's just this search of ancient. Okay, so yeah, they were looking for ancient relics might have power to win the war. Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS, wanted to establish the center of the New World. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, it does. We all know that that's what they're always looking for is to create a new world order. And
this is essentially what the Fourth Reich was supposed
right.
to be, and there's possibility that we could be living in a Fourth Reich society right now. Actually,
it could very well be, and it could have been done so subtly that we didn't realize that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be this big push for things the way it was in World War II, where it was the divide and conquer the world. It could be just done very subtly, and sort of everything transitioned over, and we didn't even realize it happened. So,
okay, Joseph Mengele. He was one of the first methodical studies on trauma-based mind control were conducted by Joseph Mengele. A physician working in Nazi concentration camps, he initially gained notoriety for being one of the SS physicians who supervised the selection of arriving prisoners, determining who was to be killed or who was to become a forced laborer.
However, he's mostly known for performing really grisly human experiments on camp inmates, including children. And he got the nickname the Angel of Death, which he earned very, very much.
Yes, he did.
Responsible for some horrendous, horrible things. He escaped, and was set up to perform some continue his mind control experiments, and it sort of has led into what we're going to get into next, which is the Monarch program, which is pretty important, and this is the
Focuses on the Project Paperclip scientists bringing over, the German scientists with their new rocket propulsion technology and Werner von Braun, and everyone really focuses on that. That became the beginnings of our space program with NASA. Was literally ran by Nazis at the beginning of it, and their technology was just so far ahead of where we were at that time. Why wouldn't you use that?
Right.
Especially the space race with Russia.
Right.
So. But a lot of one thing that people don't really talk about that much when it comes to paperclip is that some of those paperclip scientists, which were Nazis, were also involved in what Mengele was doing with the mind control experiments and using drugs and also this is torture. This is where they were doing the in the concentration camps where prisoners were being given fluoride in their water. That's where this first happened, so that prisoners could start feeling docile and accept their fate.
Right.
And what's crazy is that we're kind of living in that society right now with the fluoridation of our water right now.
Yeah.
Like we just kind of accept that we have our 9 to 5 job and we just live
do
life,
this.
you know, and then like people just get totally hammered and drink on the weekend, and so they can go back and just settle and do it all again.
It's called the illusion of freedom.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that if you do that, then you're just settling, but I'm saying that there are a lot of people that live that lifestyle.
Right.
And, you know, it's sad and, like, it sucks, but a big part of that, too, is, like, a whole nother PowerPoint presentation on
Right.
the way that we're being attacked through our food and our water.
Oh, my God.
And you know, a lot of the mind control through what we're actually talking about right now with, you know, music.
Right.
And we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah, there's so much.
Projects. And now we have MK Ultra. This was the code name given to an illegal program of experiments in the 1950s on human subjects designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. Experiments of humans were intended to identify and develop different methods and procedures, including the use of drugs to be used in interrogations and torture in order to weaken an individual to force confession through mind control.
And so MK Ultra used numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental states and alter brain functions, including the surreptitious. Thank you. Administration of drugs, especially acid, LSD, was very much used in this, and other chemicals. They used hypnosis. They used sensory deprivation, isolation. They used verbal and sexual abuse, and as well as various forms of torture. And what this really did, like when people would go through this experience, they would come out and they would start talking about this, and nobody in the 50s and early 60s would have even believed that this was humanly possible, that somebody would be through this, go through this. So they would label them as crazy, and whatever word you wanted to use. And this is actually something that was actually happening to them. And
here's the crazy part too about the LSD use. So these experiments were going on in the 1950s, and a lot of these experiments were taking place in that the Palo Alto area. And a lot of the way MK Ultra worked is that they would do a lot of professors at universities would actually be stationed there and doing MK Ultra research activities at a lot of these universities at the time. And it's very interesting too how LSD made its way out into, you know, the hippie movement, and you know, major bands at that time started taking it, like not in the 50s, but you know, later on.
late 60s.
Yeah, and it seems like the project moved from outside of the universities and inside of these some like insane asylums to the real world, and say how can we apply this to a real world experiment. And some of the techniques used for like isolation and verbal abuse and all these kind of things, which verbal abuse and sexual abuse, as it says right here, which is a little cliff note for future slides for part 2 and 3, we're going to get deep into the whole Kesha and Dr. Luke scandal.
Right.
Which, you know, we have these reports of Dr. Luke raping Kesha when she was 18, and then also, too, the verbal abuse, what the fat shaming, it was called. That's what it was referred to. And Kesha has an eating disorder now, or did, or something like that. And the whole handler aspect of MK Ultra really reminds me of kind of what Dr. Luke was doing, and it's very reminiscent of that. And I'm sure that there's a lot of that going on in the music industry in other ways. And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Luke is a music producer who has more #1 singles than the Beatles. So, and this guy's worked with everyone from Gaga, Katy Perry, Kesha, Britney Spears, you name it. Like, you listen to 102.7 Kiss FM in Los Angeles here, pretty much every single song of that is Dr. Luke. And you don't get to that unless you have not just connections, but you're connected in this inner group of networking, you know, something like Freemasonry, or just ties to, you know, in some kind of an occult nature or Illuminati family. I'm not saying he is or does have any of those connections. I'm just saying it's interesting how you get to that place to have that big of an impact musically on the world within
so many different artists.
within a 10 to 15 year period of time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that doesn't
very-
just happen.
Yeah, it's too
It's too convenient.
too
I would say.
convenient. Yeah.
And another thing I was gonna say about some of the MK Ultra techniques used is that there's one technique where they would put someone in complete isolation in a room by themselves for a couple days, and they'd basically just start going crazy. And the whole point of the mind control, trauma-based mind control that they do is to create alters, which is
Right.
separate personalities, and that's where we get the multiple personality disorder, where it can actually be created. In
You can
these kind
fracture somebody.
and you can fracture someone's mind into different personalities, unaware that the other personalities exist. And so this is where the whole Manchurian Candidate thing came from. And so basically, the thought behind it is you can have one alter who's an assassin, one alter who's under sex kitten programming,
Right.
one alter who is a great reconnaissance agent, whatever you wanted it to be, unaware that the other ones exist. And there's some movies out there who talk about this, like United States of Sarah.
Yeah.
I think it's
there was
what
a
it's
movie
called,
back in the 70s with Sally Field called Sybil, and she exhibited 16 different alters.
Wow.
And so,
There's what's it called? American Ultra with
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart that just came out. That has some deep insight to some MK Ultra programming there, where he couldn't even get on the plane flight because he had been hypnotically suggested that if he tries to leave the country or the state, he'll have anxiety attacks that are so bad that he just won't physically be able to do it. And it's just very interesting how they put that in there, because that's straight out of MK Ultra.
And so one of the things that we want, because bringing this back to what we're talking about, a lot of these people are well versed in these tactics, and so they use them on artists, and the artists don't realize what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
to finish up the story too about the teddy bear experiment.
oh my god,
kind of
that
thing.
was
So they have someone in complete isolation, and they'll leave them in there for like 3 days, maybe longer, and barely give them anything to live. They start going into their mind to just deal with this trauma that's being created, and then they will go, and then the people will finally give them a teddy bear after like 3 days in complete isolation, and then they get extremely attached to the teddy bear. They'll just throw in the teddy bear in there and then leave and not say anything to them. They'll get extremely emotionally attached to the teddy bear. It's their only like form of companion when you're in that much isolation and what the mind's going through. And then after maybe 24 hours, 48 hours of being with that teddy bear, the people will come back in the room, grab the teddy bear, like literally rip it out of their arms, and then slam the door shut and leave them in that solitary confinement again for another who knows how long.
Months.
And that's just one of the like really, really cruel techniques that will be used to try and create these fractures in the mind. And it's trauma-based mind control, and this is also linked to satanic ritual abuse as well.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so the program officially ended in the late 60s. Many believe that it's still ongoing, most likely under different names.
MK Ultra was brought to light by various commissions in the 1970s, including the Rockefeller Commission in 1975. And so this was an actual program. You can look it up and see all the information. There's a lot of declassified documents on it.
A lot actually.
Although it's claimed that the CIA stopped these experiments after these commissions, there are some whistleblowers who have come forth saying that the project simply went underground, and Monarch programming has become the classified successor of MK Ultra.
Techniques used. The published evidence indicates that Project MK Ultra involved the use of many methodologies to manipulate individual mental states and alter brain functions, including the surreptitious administration of drugs and other chemicals, sensory deprivation, isolation, and verbal and physical abuse.
And so the most publicized experiments conducted by MK Ultra involved the administration of LSD on unwitting human subjects, including CIA employees, military personnel, doctors, and other government agents, prostitutes, mentally ill patients, and members of the general public in order to study their reactions. So they wanted to see how it worked on all different kinds of people.
There's the famous story of the Christmas party, of the CIA Christmas party, where there's a group of guys with the LSD, and they actually doused a couple employees and to test their reactions. on LSD, and that there's prostitution involved in that to test the reactions with that.
Yeah.
And so they were literally just like beyond the law at this point. There weren't
yeah.
laws in place to not do this.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so they were just running rampant, doing these tests with LSD.
Yeah.
With no like
Let's
legal
see what
authority
happens if we
because there
do
wasn't
this.
anything
Yeah.
to exist at that point. Okay, however, the scope of MK Ultra does not stop. Experiments involving violent electroshocks, physical and mental torture, and abuse were used in systematic manner on many subjects, including children. And the source for this is from VigilantCitizen.com.
Yep.
So we have to ask ourselves, if a covert group in the government had this power, why would they not use it as a form of psychological warfare to influence America the way it sees fit? What better way than to do something with that as influential as the music industry?
Right.
And this is what we really have to ask ourselves. Like, you're, in the 60s when this is starting to end, and you're starting to go even more covert. Sometimes more covert is overt, And
Yeah.
if it's not being done, maybe the loophole is it can't be done in the way they were doing it, so let's bring it out to the real world in a way that it can't really be stopped.
Yeah, it's like what better way to start to get people to
Hiding in plain sight.
is to start putting acid out into the community as a party drug.
Yeah.
What a brilliant thing to do, and then everybody starts dropping out.
Not just that, let's have the biggest, most influential rock groups at the time start taking it.
And what bigger
And-
one did they have than the Beatles?
Yeah.
The Beatles were really the first group, I think, to start experimenting with acid, and you can see if you watch them how their music changes pretty dramatically, and expands into a totally different world. And so that's when people in that culture started using acid more and more.
And we want to make it clear that we're not saying that the Beatles or any of these rock groups were involved in
Right.
being aware of this
Right.
at all.
They were.
I think, to be
four
honest,
nice
if they
dudes.
knew that a lot of these artists knew that they were being involved in something like this, like a extension of an MK Ultra experiment, that they would not be a part of it. They wouldn't
No.
want to be a part of it. I don't think they would at all.
No.
And there's a lot of controversy too with Jim Morrison. Let's say, for example, like where the Oliver Stone movie showed, which is a great film, the Doors
It is.
film.
I loved
Well,
it.
it shows him being like, this crazy drug fiend. Well, not really a drug fiend, just like he's popping acid all the time. He's doing this, he's doing that. And when really, like, he wasn't even a big proponent of acid. He was mainly just a big drinker.
Yeah. He liked his whiskey.
Yeah,
And,
so it's interesting to show. I mean, you listen to the Doors, you know that there is a lot of psychedelic influence in that music, of course.
Yeah.
But some of these things could be taken out of context or fanaticalized into a way for social engineering.
Right. And so, that whole this what we're talking about is a whole generation that was changed
Yeah,
as a result
overnight.
of this, and
And also too, that I see this as like this has been this constant destruction of the family.
yeah.
I almost see it as a ritual because we even see it even more today.
Oh,
but
it's
like
insane.
the strain that this probably put on, because you got to think, like, I've been watching that JFK show with
Oh, the one where he goes back in
11/22/63,
time. Yeah, I haven't
with
seen
James
that
Franco. Everyone's all in the 50s. They're all, well, I guess that's like the early 60s. They're all very
yet. Suit and tie, hat.
very
Yeah.
respectable, and then all of a sudden,
Everything
this
went
LSD drug comes in, and everyone's just
like
running
loses
around
it.
naked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
just
imagine
complete
being
flip.
a parent and seeing that.
Yeah.
And it's weird to be like, my age at this time and like thinking that way.
Yeah.
But seeing how social engineering could make this dramatic of effect on the entire culture of the youth overnight
Yeah.
is, as if you think about it, if there is a social engineering connection to this, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. And it's
say the
clear that
least.
something happened because it literally happened between 63 and 66.
This is
There
another
was a
diversion
completely
tactic.
different world.
Yeah.
It just changed, and so something clearly happened,
Mm-hmm.
and music is a huge part of how that happens. You've got major bands that are coming out in that time frame. San Francisco is jumping off. You've got the Jefferson Airplane. You've got the beginnings of Led Zeppelin. You've got the beginnings of all of Grateful Dead.
Which 2 of the members are admitted Masons.
And I got to see them before Jerry died, so I'm
Really?
very happy about that.
Well, yeah, 2 of the members are admitted Freemasons, and their extension of their family is as well.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting connections of like the first acid test and the Grateful Dead coming together to do this stuff with their their psychedelic lights and everything on stage with that. That's part of MK Ultra. What they were doing experiments into the flickering of lights and how that could be used for mind control.
Trigger.
I'm not saying that people put LSD out there and doing the light shows, psychedelic light shows to trigger a bunch of Manchurian candidates. Like,
right.
It's just a little ridiculous to go right to that, and that's not what I'm saying. And that was not the total pure source of what MK Ultra was. Is many different things, many different facets, and we have to keep our minds open to what that could possibly be, and if it was just an experiment to see if it could be done and how it could be used in practical use, possibly for psychological warfare in the future.
Yep. And it's really important to start to do this research on your own too. Just don't take our word for it, but go out there and actually look this stuff
There's
up.
so much research out there to do. You just type anything into Google and you'll just have hundreds of pages on all this stuff.
It's mind blowing.
It really is. Okay, so we get right into Monarch programming.
So Monarch programming is a mind control technique comprised of elements of satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder, which is similar to what we had before. And it utilizes a combination of psychology, neuroscience, and occult rituals to create within the slaves an alter persona that can be triggered and programmed by the handlers. And Monarch slaves are used by several organizations connected with the world elite in fields such as the military, sex slavery, and the entertainment industry. And this came from the Hollywood Subliminals .wordpress.com.
This leads us to beta programming,
right?
Which is also known as sex kitten programming, and we really see a lot of this programming come out when you guys are gonna be really amazed in like the future slides how this ties into what's going on with current big pop stars.
I was.
Let's just get right into this.
Okay.
So beta is referred to as sexual programming slaves. This programming eliminates all learned moral convictions and stimulates the primitive instinct devoid of inhibitions. Cat alters may come out at this level, known as kitten programming. It is the most visible kind of programming, as some female celebrities, models, actresses, and singers have been subject to this kind of programming in popular culture. Clothing with feline prints often denote kitten programming.
This is the second. Beta is also the second Greek letter. It represents sexual models and sexual alters that the programmers are creating. The primitive part.
Remember what alters are.
Alters
just to review that.
are the splitting of the mind.
It's one fractionalized splitting of the mind. So in this sense, we're talking about beta programming is specifically towards like a sex slave programming or just inhibiting that type of alter.
So this is the primitive part of the brain is involved in this type of programming. An early sexual abuse event will be used to anchor this programming, whether you were molested or raped as a child.
What's really interesting about this is that this is actually how a lot of MK Ultra victims were found, and that's what the whole movie Sucker Punch is about.
Right.
If any of you guys have seen that movie, the beginning of the movie takes place kind of in the 50s or so. That's when MK Ultra is going on. The beginning starts off with the main characters the main young girls in the movie getting sexually abused by their father, and the father sends them off to this it's like half of insane asylum, half this like burlesque dance place where they're basically
weird.
like owned there. Have you seen the movie?
I did, but it's been a long time.
It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. It's very entertaining, but when you really look into it and all the Monarch beta programming going on, it just blows your mind. Where these young girls are literally trying to go into their mind to escape from all the torture and
I remember this now.
the abuse that's going on in the movie, and that's why the movie looks like they're in this almost anime kind of world where everything's all mystical and fantasy. But that's them escaping their mind from all the sexual trauma that's going on. And it's really wild how we see right here that this is what it's talking about.
And the slaves The sexual slaves will develop sexual abilities that are far beyond what the public is even aware is possible. They receive the worst kind of abuse, far beyond anything what you can imagine. Some of the things that I've heard about from people that I've talked to that have had sexual abuse of this kind is it's way past what you see on TV or what you hear about. It's people just being abused on a level that is beyond anything that you could actually fathom. And if you tell people what's going on, again, the cognitive dissonance kicks in, and they're like, no, that's not possible. No, people wouldn't do that. No, that's not possible.
Well,
but
if you're practicing satanic ritual abuse,
it absolutely is.
This is just another day.
And to preface this again,
it's a Tuesday.
Remember, you don't have to believe this. You just have to understand that they believe it and practice it.
That's right.
So when you see people, you hear about people that are going through this kind of abuse and are talking about this stuff, please don't just push them out of the way and say that's not happening. Listen to what they're saying, because they're telling you some stuff.
Okay, so before we go on to the next slide, let's just review real quick. Like we were saying, the sex kitten programming, at this point in the programming, cat alters may come out. And let's view the next slide.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
Boom.
So right there, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fragrance by Katy Perry called Purr that came out, and she's dressed up in the cat costume. She's looking all sexualized right there and everything. She's even has this huge ball of yarn. And
like, what has this got to do with music?
Yeah.
Or perfume, personally.
Yeah, good point. I mean, yeah, it's called Purr. It's cute. It's trendy. Yeah. It's sexy. Whatever. But there's some serious Monarch beta programming going on in this picture right here, and there's other stuff out there just like this. But this, when I first saw this after doing this research, it just completely blew my mind. I mean, when you see this stuff and you start to understand it, you can't see that and deny it. I mean, that's partly why we're setting up the slides in this way, so that the cognitive dissonance could be slowly worn down. That's also why I wanted to go at this pace too, and have kind of like a more slower pace to really let everything sink in, and how all this stuff starts from the Joseph Mengele techniques, and the CIA comes in and starts taking their mind control techniques from the Nazis, and then all of a sudden now to present day we have, it appears, with these projects that are straight out of MK Ultra, where Katy Perry's a modern artist,
Right.
And there's also a lot of other occult stuff going on in this picture too. Like we have like the mirror image of her, as you can see at the bottom down there. There's a whole bunch of other stuff with the yarn, and I didn't want to really get into all that because I wanted to focus more on the topic at hand. But if you guys do more research on this, there's a lot out there on all the stuff going on in this picture, and some other stuff going on with Katy Perry in general.
Yep.
So also with Beta Kitten programming, there's the Beta Kitten programming of Marilyn Monroe. So Marilyn Monroe is supposedly the first celebrity monarch mind control victim. And this is from VigilantCitizen.com. Here's Miley Cyrus posing for Vogue Germany. As stated in previous articles, all industry beta kittens must pose as Marilyn Monroe at one point or another of their career. It was apparently Miley's turn. Here we have Miley. And then we also have Britney Spears too. And there's a bunch of other artists who have done this. It's almost become a ritual at this point. This, posing as Marilyn Monroe in these pictures, almost as like a tribute to the first monarch mind control victim. And if that's true, I mean, to me it kind of makes sense. It perfectly fits in. There's this huge fascination with Marilyn Monroe, even still to popular culture today.
Yeah, there was something about this woman that just captured the world, and whether or not it was something that she was aware of or wasn't aware of, or she was an actress, and suddenly she became this symbol for women all over the world, and people were trying to be her and trying to look like her, and she gets involved with the Kennedy family, and then she's having an affair with JFK and apparently with RFK at the same time, and there's just all sorts of and then suddenly she's found dead in a hotel, into her house in in over here in Westwood or Brentwood, and there was just something about her, and the myth has lingered and lingered and lingered. Madonna very much looks like Marilyn Monroe in several of her stages of growth. The Vogue stage, very much Marilyn Monroe. There's a couple of other places where that's sort of the image that she's putting out.
Something else I want to say too is that this whole beta programming, there's some people on the internet who think, like, who go really far with this stuff, and like, okay, so let's say that Katy Perry slide, like, okay, so she's involved with this, so she's promoting MK Ultra programming and torture and sexual abuse. It's like, no, she's not promoting that.
Not.
She, like, the people who put this together for her are making this trendy, who want to make this look cool, and she probably has no idea of it.
Yeah.
Also, too, there's some people on the internet who will say, okay, in beta programming, the cat alters come out, and if you see any celebrities wearing cheetah print clothing, they're MK Ultra mind control slaves. It's like, no.
That's
Like,
not true.
we're going way too far with this stuff,
Right.
and just pointing the finger at anyone who has any thing to do with this and saying they're involved, they sold their soul to the devil, they're Luciferians now, end of story.
Yeah.
Satanic Kesha.
Right.
Like that. And it's just like, we
It's like-
can't keep pointing the fingers at these people and expect anyone to listen to this seriously.
Or, to come out and start talking about this openly. Because if they feel that they're going to get completely destroyed every time they open their mouth, why would you want to come out? Why would you want to?
Well said. All right, let's get to the next slide. Okay, before we move on, we really have to consider that these artists have no knowledge at all, like we've been
Right.
saying throughout, this entire presentation. And we're kind of getting close to the end of this part one of the origins of all this.
Yes.
And kind of laying, some of the groundwork for this. And we're going to continue to say this over and over and over again, that I personally do not think that most of these artists have any idea what's going on.
Right.
There are some artists, let's say like Jay-Z, for example, where he could actually have some kind of knowledge and involvement in this. I mean, some of these artists work so hard that they just honestly have no time to even research this stuff.
Right.
begin to
They
even
don't
think
have time
anything
to be
about
sitting
it.
around like we
you were
do.
saying, Bowie is working 20 hours
Bowie,
a day.
Yeah.
Like, for...
And he's one of the people that's been associated with a lot of this stuff, and I gotta say, he's like a father figure to me, and losing him this year has been one of the roughest things that's ever happened to me. I don't think I've cried that hard since my mother died. So it was because, but he was extremely intelligent man, and well read to the point of, at one point he said he was always reading he always had 5 books that he was reading at the same time. He was just brilliant. And so if he had any knowledge of any of this going on, he would be the first person to, if he did decide to use it, he would use it as an art. He would not use it as some sort of way to manipulate fans or do anything like that. I can't imagine somebody at his level of intelligence and knowledge would ever do anything harmful to the people that are out there.
As far as like going on with, if you're going to talk about Illuminati in the music industry, we have to address the whole subliminal messaging thing.
Yeah.
Subliminal messaging or backmasking, all that kind of stuff. Backmasking, playing things in reverse to see if there's hidden messages there. There's actually a whole, there's people who study that methodology, and that's been, heavily preached by Aleister Crowley, that things that are seen forward should also be viewed reversed or heard reversed, and that's just like a practice that some of these devout Satanists will do.
Right.
And like Jay-Z is openly admitted to using backmasking in his songs and experimenting with it, and that's why I think he has an interest in these subjects, and he's made it clear hinted at it in certain interviews, that he's involved in this stuff. He's a record label owner, like a pretty big dog in I'm blanking out on which record company he's involved with.
I forgot
But either way, he seems to have some kind of occult background. I'm very interested to do some more research on him, his background, and see what we can dig up. And yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so who's involved? Artists may have no knowledge. As we said this at the beginning. Music producers, stage set designers, dance choreographers, album artwork artists. Like, when you're working with these big major labels and, like, everything's so compartmentalized, like, it's really important to understand that all these people are told what they're needed to tell, that what they're needed to know to get their job done, so everything works very efficiently.
Right.
Because there's a lot of money on on the line.
There's a lot of money.
The timing is so key.
And you have, the artist that's doing their art. You have the set designer that's designing the set or the stage.
Which in these award shows, we see how the set designers have so much to do with whatever agenda is being pushed. Like you said, the big eye at the Grammys.
The Oscars.
Like, the Oscars.
The Oscars.
Okay.
I was stunned yesterday. I saw, and somebody posted this, and I didn't see it when I watched most of the show. But if you pull back from the stage at the Oscars last weekend, the whole stage is a giant eye. It was just right in my face, and I didn't even see it, and it was, and so you have the
Olympics. We have the giant pyramids,
right,
with the eye at the top, like all around the complete arena.
So what happens is that you have like the compartmentalizing that you're talking about. You have the producer who's overseeing all the project. You have the artist that's doing the work. Then you have a set designer who's designing a set. Then you have somebody who's designing the choreography. Then you have somebody who's designing the artwork for the show, for the album, for the whatever it is. And the producer is overseeing all of this.
Here's something interesting with the producer. A lot of people say that, like, okay, these older groups with doing stuff to vinyl, that they wouldn't have put all that backmasking and reverse message stuff on there. Because remember, when you're working with vinyl and something that's analog, you can't just put reverse messages all over the place. It has to be very systematically done. We don't have the technology now that we do now. So it's very easy for a producer to go into the studio with the band unaware and go in and put backmasking in their song when they're not there, when they're out partying on LSD, and put whatever they want to in the studio. And we even see that in the Josie and the Pussycats movie.
Yeah.
I loved that movie. I thought it was great. The way that if you guys don't know what we're talking about, don't worry. I'm going to find some clips of that movie and show it in future live streams that we do, because they show you how they're doing subliminal messaging and backmasking in that movie, where they say, hey, you guys go out, have a good night. And the producer is saying, the manager, and you guys go, you deserve a break. And then he's in the studio and he's putting all this subliminal messaging into the songs. And maybe in part 2 or part 3 of this, I'm actually going to show you guys how you can actually put subliminal messaging into music. I've been doing some research on doing this. I have I'm going to be showing a screencast of me running Pro Tools, how this can be done using frequencies to manipulate the stuff so that it's not consciously heard in the mix, but it's heard subconsciously, because your subconscious does not miss a beat and it picks up all this stuff.
Right.
And how this can be put in a frequency that humans do not hear, but the hypnotic suggestion is there.
No.
It's going to be very interesting, and I don't think anyone's ever done anything like this on
and I want to know how to do it too, because I've never
before.
I didn't know it.
It can be done, and I even have some stuff that I've already been working on of some reverse speech that people have been putting on YouTube, showing how this means this backwards, and I'm actually going to be recreating that in Pro Tools so that you can see it. And there's a plugin that you can use called Reverse, and you literally highlight the speech that you want, you click render, and it reverses the speech so that you can hear what it means backwards. So we're going to get all into that later and really show you guys the process of it, so we're not manipulating it. You see it in real time, how that's happening, and really crack the lid off all this. I'm really excited about that, and kind of put all this conspiracy theory of this stuff to rest, so everyone knows this is really conspiracy fact, and this is reality, and this is being done to sell records, and it's a crime. Also, I want to make it clear, that this subliminal messaging and all this stuff, this can actually be used in a positive way. Yeah. Everyone thinks of this so negatively, and I don't do this in my music, but it could be done positively. And if you put messages of love and light subconsciously and subliminally in your music, there's not really anything wrong with that. Like, hell, you have my consent to do that. But when you put things that are inside music subliminally that are referencing Lucifer or anything negative, which is what we find in some of these things, you do not have my consent for that.
Right.
You do not have my consent.
Mine either. And I've been listening to a lot of this stuff most of my life, and it disturbed me to find out that this has been going on for so long.
It's part of the destruction of innocence ritual. Whether people find out about this stuff or not, the record labels love it because it's the destruction of innocence ritual. This is like a real thing. That's how I look at it. And so, yeah. Compartmentalization, we talked about that for a little bit. And, like, this is crucial. Just like in the military-industrial complex, for everyone to achieve their goal in indoctrinating and promoting a more satanic society, everyone is told what they need to know at their level, and only the big guys at the very top putting this all together, the social engineers, really know what is going on here. And if you think about it, these big major record labels and the marketing teams and all that working to make this stuff happen, at the very, very, very top, there's a systematic effort that is very similar to social engineering. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that some of these guys in these positions of power actually work with the actual social engineers of the world. Right. And one could say that the real social engineers are the Illuminati or these, power elite people. But that is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. No question of that.
And, artists having any knowledge of their symbols or meaning, unless they have, watch shows like this or listen to some of these other podcasts or Coast to Coast or whatever, they would really have no idea.
Right. You don't see artists running on to these shows to talk about this because they don't have time to listen to them. And if they do have time to listen to them, they don't want to rock the boat because their career. They're looking at we're looking at artists, high level artists that are millions of dollars.
There's so much investing done in the promoting and doing all this stuff. And as a fan, we're trained to think when you see a music artist, everything that they're doing and promoting is them.
Right.
And it's almost like acting. It's like you can't watch a Johnny Depp movie and watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and say everything he's doing in that movie is what Johnny Depp actually does. And we have this facade in America that we think all this stuff is actually real. Yeah. And it's like if you look at Britney Spears and she's doing her whole thing, her whole Britney thing, and then you hear her talk in interviews, she's this little like, Southern cute girl, like not like she is at all. Yeah. So we have to break down this. We have our own programming about this stuff that we think is reality, and it's a big facade.
Yeah, I had the honor years ago to meet Bowie in a cafe, and I got to talk to him for a couple of hours. And I can tell you, without the person that you see on stage is far different than the person that you meet in person. He's very calm. He's very smart. He's very introverted. He's not, he's like this enigma wrapped in a riddle, and he can talk to you on any subject at length. And so, the celebrity culture that we've created in this world where you put this product out, which is you, but it's a version of you that isn't necessarily the one that you would meet when you, right. Like if you were to meet us on the street and talk to us, this is how we are.
Yeah.
We're not putting anything out there that said I will talk about this is openly with you personally as I would as we're doing this. So, this is who we are. So we're not trying to put up a facade or try to be better at anybody. That's just the music business and the entertainment, the acting business are. You take the artist and you literally create a product and put that product out, which is different than the person that you actually know. So
it's a product that will sell.
It's a saleable item.
That social engineers have figured out what will sell the best over
best.
Decades. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's the big question. Are you guys ready for it?
Here we go.
Which artists are in the Illuminati? The answer is none. A big fat none.
Right.
Like, as much as some might joke around about it and play around with that terminology, in the reality, like, they're just not. And, some of them might have ties or connections. Who knows?
They may
But at
not
the end of
even
the
know
day-
that the people they're talking to are the people that we consider the Illuminati or the cabal or whatever word you want to use, the social engineers, the whatever it is. They're businessmen, or they're artists that have become business people who are trying to get their business product out into the world, and the only way they can do that is to do business with the people that are paying the big money.
But here's the illusion of that. Some people might not understand that. Like, record companies put up this big facade that, like, if you sign this contract, your life is going to be set. You're going to be happy.
Oh,
You're going to
no.
make music, and
Nope.
like you're gonna have fans that adore you and love you.
Nope.
And
I can
some
tell
of
you,
these people are just become so controlled when you get that deep into what is promised. You
Right.
get those things, but at the same time, it's like it's hard to enjoy that when you're being worked so damn hard.
many years ago, I had the opportunity to go. I was going to become a recording engineer, so I went to a recording engineering school. And one of the classes that they taught us was contract class. Excuse me. And through the whole course of the class, we read a contract from, the guy that ran the class was a very well known artist rep, and I'm not kidding. It was this thick, and at the end of it, what it basically said was, we as the record company will screw you as the artist as many different ways as we can come up with. We will put you into deep debt, and so that it'll take you 3 albums just to get back the money that we've lent you. And so the first, it was horrific. I was like, oh, why would anybody sign this? But here you are as an artist, and you really want to get your music and your stuff out into the world.
Usually young and naive.
You're 19 or younger now, and sure, you'll sign it, and your parents will sign it too, because they're thinking, cha-ching, my kid's a great singer, and here comes this guy that's told them.
Here's the thing too with, like, we'll give a little tidbit, a little future of the part 2 with Kesha and Dr. Luke. Some of the backstory of that is that Dr. Luke convinced Kesha to drop out of high school. She's really young, to join his record label, Kemosabe Records, and start making music. And somehow, I assume he talked her into this, or the Sony people did, that I don't know how many. I'm assuming it was a 7 record deal, or 8, because
Or
Kesha's
8,
released
yeah.
like a 8, like 1 album and a couple singles, I think, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And her court ruling was that she had to finish completing her contractual obligations with Sony to complete 6 more albums with them,
With the person
who essentially raped her.
has raped her or has allegedly raped her and
Allegedly
assaulted
raped her.
her. And I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine if you have a job where you're trying to, and you're being told by the law you have to go back to the place that had been abusive to you for maybe many more years to get this contract done.
And the craziest part about all that is that, like, they gave her the option, like, oh, you have to complete your contractual obligations with Sony, but you don't have to work with Dr. Luke. But her and her lawyer know that they're just not going to promote the album without Dr. Luke doing it, because he is so much more valuable than Kesha is.
Right.
So, if you guys didn't get what that message was, like, who have been following this case, they're saying that their music producers are more valuable than these artists that we praise and love, which is also a form of false idol worship.
Right.
And that's a whole nother thing. But that's the reality we live in.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, as far as we know, the only members in the Illuminati we know reside within 12 to 13 multi-generational families of bankers who may also have ties, who also have ties into politics.
And pretty much everything else.
And also, too, this doesn't mean that the Illuminati members are just, like, a family of, like, 20 people in each family. It's like, it's just this inbred family that has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown.
Right.
And at this point, it's probably a lineage of anyone's guess at this point. But, so that's how that family works. It's pretty, those families work. There's no music artists involved in them. But once again, I do have this intuitional feeling like Jay-Z does have some kind of connection. I can't put my finger on it yet. He's definitely aware that there's an Illuminati. I mean, we know that he goes and has, he goes and hangs out with Michelle and Obama and Barack Obama, and like, I think their kids are friends too with like him and Beyonce, and like, there's just something weird about that to me, and I see that he understands that there's something bigger going on here at these bigger levels of the record industry, and he understands it, and I think he sees how he can be utilized.
No.
That's just kind of what I see with my mind's eye. Okay, so we kind of covered this, and the biggest thing that we really want to hit on with this whole lecture is that artists are merely puppets to make Satanism look cool and trendy to your children. And this is something that we really see. All the other people involved, usually they'll probably have some interest in the occult, as well as ties to Freemasonry and the Illuminati. The music artists themselves most likely do not. And the biggest thing here that we want to make clear too is that Satanism is a stepping stone for the Illuminati's true goal to create a new world order with a one world religion based off Luciferianism.
Right. Very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this throughout this entire series, you don't have to believe this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. You may have never met any of these people. This may be something that's completely out of your mind, but they unequivocally believe it without compunction. They believe this, and this is their religion. This is the way they operate, and their mindset is based on this. So when they're doing this, they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're doing what their religion tells them to do, which is service to self and not service to others, which is what we're trying to shoot for here. Is try to stay away from the idea of it's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. And it's like, and then when you're done with that, you can say, instead of I'm done talking about me, what do you think of me? And this whole culture of the music industry of this whole thing is, we build these artists up, we give them all the fame and glory, all the power, all this money, all this prestige, and they can come out and say whatever they want, and everybody will believe it. And then if they say the wrong thing, they start to get torn down. Big example of that, Michael Jackson. And he was a god among men for many, many years. And then one day, he may have said the wrong thing or something went south, and they're like, let's take him out. And they did.
Well, there's another school of thought too with that, and Freeman gets into this a lot about how he was looking into a lot of cloning, ways to get himself cloned, and how his death might have been faked. There's footage of somebody following him into the morgue, and you see someone get out of the back of the emergency vehicle, and who knows if that's real or not.
If it was me, I would want out. I really would.
Yeah,
I'd be like, just enough of this. I gotta go.
Yeah.
If you've been given the opportunity, like somebody comes to you and says, Mike, we can get you out of all this if you want.
Yeah.
Really? I was like, what? And you don't have to deal with it anymore. And only like 2 or 3 people in the world would even know that this exists, and nobody will believe them anyway. So we can make that happen for you.
Yeah.
Who knows? Would you do it? I would.
All right. All right, guys. Well, we really hoped you guys enjoyed this live presentation of the origins of the Illuminati Music-Industrial-Complex Part 1. Make sure to stay up to date with us about when Part 2 will be coming out.
We will definitely let you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you have any closing statements, Phil? I feel pretty good about this.
I feel really good about this. I think this is a great opening salvo to a very big problem, very, very big issue.
Yes.
And that's why we decided to break it up, because we looked at the whole slide presentation, and we're up to 70 slides, and
Something
by the
like
time
that
we
now,
get done doing, we're still continuing to do research.
We have a lot more stuff to
So
talk
much.
about that's already prepared and ready to go.
So we got at least 3 to 4 shows ready to go. So we're just gonna figure out when we're gonna do them, and then we'll let you guys know.
It'll either be a once a month thing or maybe every 2 months, depending on our schedules right now.
Yeah. And so please, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you love it, let your friends know that we exist. Let them know that because there are 10 other shows or 9 other shows too that we talk about that are here too. So we really want to get the word out that we're out here and we're here for you guys. And if you're an artist and you want to talk about more about this, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, we're also going to be booking some live speaking events soon coming up. So be sure to check into that when we officially post those.
Yep.
And
So excited.
Yeah, me too. All right, guys. Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and, leave us a comment.
Please.
And, let's get engaged in the conversation together. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.